They forgot again. That's what I told myself. Again. I remember standing in the middle of my brother's living room last month, holding a bottle of wine, a handmade wooden photo frame I crafted myself, and this stupid little card that said, "To the perfect pair 10 years strong." It was their vow renewal. A big fancy dinner party at a Malibu estate rental, white lights strung everywhere, music playing, everybody dressed like they were going to a tech award show. Except me. I wasn't invited. Let me back up. My name's Jordan Hayes. I'm 34 and I'm a licensed architect who also teaches design part-time at a local community college. I build real things, real homes, real plans, real futures. My brother Cameron, he builds hype. He runs a startup that basically repackages cloud tools with fancier logos and buzzwords. You've probably seen his smug TEDx clip somewhere on TikTok about owning your legacy. Yeah, that guy. Cameron married Bree 10 years ago. Bree's what you'd call curated. Every meal outfit emotion Instagram ready. Not a bad person, just one who never quite looked at me like I was on the same team. Still, I showed up. For a whole decade. Every birthday, every barbecue. I was the guy taking pictures, making videos, cleaning up spilled juice while they posed with champagne. Never asked for much. Just thought I was part of it. I was wrong. The real punch came when I saw it on Bree's story 24 hours late. Everyone was there. Our cousins. Her family. Even our old neighbor from when we were kids, Miss Diane, who once forgot my name and called me the quiet one. String lights, matching outfits, the works. I saw Cameron give this dramatic toast. To family. The real kind. The ones who've been there through everything. I watched that video 3 times. Not because I liked it, because I couldn't believe I wasn't even mentioned. The worst part? 2 days before that, I had dinner with Cam. We grabbed ramen. I paid. He talked about his upcoming investor event, and I asked if he and Bree had plans for their anniversary. He said they were keeping it low-key. Low-key my ass. You don't spend $7K on custom florals for low-key. You don't fly in Bree's best friend from Denver for low-key. So I texted him. Hey, just saw the party. Looked beautiful. Not sure if I missed the invite somehow. Nothing, no read receipt, no reply, just silence. That's when it hit me. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a forgot. They chose not to include me. That night I sat in my kitchen, lights off, just listening to the hum of the fridge. My phone screen lit up a few times. A student asking about deadlines, a friend sending memes. No family. I kept thinking about all the things they never saw me do. Like the time I helped mom pay off her medical bill anonymously through a community health relief fund I created with my firm. Or when I stayed up 4 nights in a row helping dad rewire his garage after that little fire without ever telling Cameron because I knew he'd turn it into a LinkedIn post. I didn't need credit, but I never thought I'd be invisible. The next morning I deleted the photos from my phone. All of them. 10 years of parties, smiles, inside jokes that never really included me. Gone. That was day 1. Day 2 I called my lawyer. See, there's something they never knew. I was one of the original funders of the Hayes Legacy Initiative, the so-called family foundation Cameron parades at networking events, like it's his idea. They never asked where the startup capital came from. They never asked who paid for the web dev team or the incorporation fees or that first $50K donation match that made it look legit to their board. They just assumed it came from Cameron. Nope, it came from me. So I froze my shares, quietly, legally. My lawyer smiled and said, "You're about to ruin someone's week in the most ethical way possible." I nodded. I didn't want revenge. I wanted recognition. And if I couldn't get it through love, I'd take it through absence. 3 days later, Bree's assistant emailed me in a panic. "Hey Jordan, just wondering if you could resend the annual release paperwork for the foundation sponsorships. We need it for Q2 compliance, so sorry for the rush." I didn't reply. Instead, I forwarded the email to my lawyer and we drafted a formal statement. As of this date, Jordan Hayes withdraws his founding contributions, licensing rights, and design authorization from Hayes Legacy Initiative due to breach of family trust and misrepresentation of source. The next morning, it was front-page internal news. They lost half their funding overnight. No calls, no texts. Cameron finally sent one line a week later. "Was that necessary?" I replied. "Was forgetting your brother necessary?" I wish I could say that was the end of it, but it wasn't. Because the one thing I hadn't touched yet was the home, the actual physical property that symbolized Hayes' family values. A house we inherited from our grandfather. A house they used for events, fundraisers, campaign shoots. without ever asking me. Because what they didn't know, I owned 51%. The house was in Santa Ynez, not beachfront or flashy, but one of those ranch-style places with wraparound porches, creaky floors, and a fireplace that actually worked. My grandfather built it himself. It was where we spent summers as kids, hot afternoons, lemonade pitchers, and that weird mildew smell that never really left the guest room closet. It had always been Grandpa's house, until he passed and technically it became ours. By ours, I mean Cameron and me. He got busy, said he didn't have time to manage an old house, told me you're better at that stuff anyway, and handed it off like it was some bulky task. I took care of the permits, utilities taxes, and the new water heater last year when the pipes burst during that freak winter freeze. He still showed up with Bree every Labor Day weekend like it was a resort. They even hosted their wellness and innovation retreat there last spring and never once asked me if it was cool. Like always, I let it slide. Until now. The day after I froze the foundation shares, I drove up to the house. I hadn't been in months. It was dusty, neglected chairs still stacked in the sunroom fridge, half-cleaned a half-used bottle of rosé from Bree's bachelorette party still rolling around in the back corner. I didn't feel nostalgic. I felt territorial. Like this was the first time I was seeing the place for what it really was, the last piece of ground I hadn't surrendered. So I changed the locks. 2 weeks later, I got the first call. Bree's event planner. Hi, just confirming our date for the next retreat at the Santa Ynez property. Cameron mentioned you'd take care of the logistics again this year. I took a breath and said calmly, that property's under review. The retreat's not happening there. Long pause. Wait, what? But they've already booked speakers, vendors. This is super last minute. I'm sure they'll find a solution. I'm not it anymore. I hung up before I could change my mind. A few hours later, Cameron showed up in my inbox. Subject line, bro WTF. You seriously changed the locks? Without even a text, I've got a full list of people planning to stay there next month. What's your problem? I didn't respond. 3 days later, a courier showed up with a thick envelope Cam's attorney. Inside a cease and desist letter claiming I'd unlawfully denied shared access. Nice try. I called my own lawyer. He laughed. You really want to play chess with a guy holding a checkers board? We filed a partition of ownership petition. It essentially froze the house from being used without dual owner approval. No more casual weekends. No more photo ops. He couldn't even step foot on the property without my written consent. The next part was a little petty. I made sure to block off all calendar access they had connected to the old shared Google account. Then I posted a photo of the house. Just the porch, a cup of coffee. A caption that read, "Nothing like peace in places you used to feel invisible." Bree unfollowed me 20 minutes later. Here's the thing, I didn't want their apology. I wanted the silence back. I wanted the space I used to fill with hope that they'd eventually see me as something else now. Something solid, like self-respect, like closure. But life doesn't work on clean lines. Because that same week, I got a message I didn't expect. It was from Lena Cameron's daughter, my niece. She's 10. The only person in that whole family who ever looked at me like I mattered. It was a video. Her hair was messy and she had a band-aid on her chin like she'd fallen on the playground. She whispered into the camera like it was a secret. Uncle Jordan, are you mad at Dad? I hope you're not mad at me. I miss building stuff with you. I'm making a robot dog for science fair. Can you help? Please don't hate me. I swear my chest cracked in half. That's the problem with kids. They don't deserve the fallout from grown-up bullshit. I took a deep breath, sent back a reply. Hey champ, I could never be mad at you. And I'd love to help you with your robot dog. You got this. You're the smart one in the family. I didn't mention Cameron. I didn't ask about the party. I just let her know I was still there. The next day, Bree texted me. Please don't drag Lena into this. That was rich coming from someone who posted a family dinner photo with a caption like, surrounded by those who matter. But I kept it classy. She reached out to me, and I responded like someone who gives a damn. She left me on red. Things stayed quiet for a while. I thought maybe we'd reach the end of it, but that was wishful thinking. 2 weeks later, I got a formal request from Cameron's lawyer. They wanted to buy me out of the house, offered a number that was frankly insulting. They assumed I'd take it. They assumed I needed it. They forgot who I was. Let me tell you what Cameron didn't know. A year ago, I finished designing a green housing project that got picked up by a nonprofit developer. It paid out enough to cover my bills for the next 3 years. I wasn't rich, but I was free. So no, I didn't need the money. What I needed was dignity. What I needed was for them to feel the absence they created. So instead of replying, I made a call. There's this couple retired educators from Oregon who'd been looking for a quiet retreat to buy. No kids, no social media, just wanted a place to birdwatch and read mystery novels by the fireplace. They loved the house, so I sold my half to them with a clause. No access for past event holders, no license to use the Hayes family name. Any trespassing attempts must be reported. I didn't even mark up the price. I just wanted the ending. 3 days later, Cameron blew up my phone. You sold the house to strangers. I sent one reply. I reclaimed peace. You treated it like property. I treated it like memory. Guess which one lasts longer? He didn't text again. But Lena did. She sent a photo of her science fair project, a little robot dog with one LED eye and cardboard legs. The name on the placard said Project JH. No one in her class knew what it meant. But I did. And that was enough. It's wild how quickly people try to rewrite history once they realize you're not playing your old part anymore. A week after I sold the house, I started getting these weird casual messages from extended family. One from Aunt Kira, who hadn't texted me in like 2 birthdays and a funeral. Hey, just wanted to check in. Hope everything's good with work and life. Miss seeing your face at the holidays. Oh, now you miss me. Nah, you miss what I let you use. Then I got the invite. Cameron was giving a keynote speech at this West Coast tech conference. One of those visionary panels full of startup founders talking about disruption and community impact. I wasn't planning to go, but then I saw the promo materials. There it was, in bold letters across the screen, Cameron Hayes, co-founder, Hayes Family Legacy Initiative. The same initiative I created, funded, built the infrastructure for, and legally withdrew from. Guess someone forgot to update the branding. So I called my lawyer. Turns out, Cameron never filed a name change after I revoked my share. And because I still held 50% of the intellectual rights to the Hayes Family Legacy title, yup, I'd copyrighted it before he even picked a font. I had the legal right to file a cease and desist. So that's what I did. 3 days before the event, I served the entire conference board a legal injunction. No one was allowed to use the name Hayes Family Legacy Initiative in any printed, digital, or spoken materials without co-founder approval. That would be me. The fallout, instant chaos. Their brochures had already been printed. Social media posts, banners, signage all featured the name. Cam had to change his speaker title 48 hours before the event. From visionary behind Hayes Family Legacy to independent community advocate, which basically sounds like he runs a Facebook group for suburban dads. He was livid. I know because he called me the night before the speech. First time he'd called in over a year. I didn't pick up. He left a voicemail. Jordan, what are you doing, man? You're making this personal. Over what? A dinner party. A missed invite. Come on, you're better than this. I listened to it twice, then deleted it. You want to know something funny? The more I pulled away, the more visible I became. That keynote without my name attached to it got less attention than any of his previous talks. The press didn't care. The audience looked bored. Cam, stripped of his usual narrative armor, came off like a guy with too much product in his hair and not enough substance under it. Without my quiet work propping him up, his shine dulled. Fast. A few days later, I got an email from a woman named Tina, the head of the conference's Philanthropy Advisory Board. She said she'd looked into the history of the Hayes Family Initiative and was surprised. Surprised to learn that I'd built the whole education program around underrepresented students in architecture. Surprised that none of the contributions had my name on them, even though the receipts said otherwise. She asked if I'd be willing to come speak next year about actual legacy. I said yes, but that wasn't even the part that hit hardest. That came when Lena again, that bright light of a kid, sent me a handwritten letter, like envelope and stamps and everything. It read, Uncle Jordan, I don't know what's going on with Dad, but I think he's mad a lot. I told him you helped me with my project, and he said it don't bring him into this, but I wanted you to know I got second place. Thank you for helping me. I told them you're an architect, and I want to be one too. Love, Lena. I just sat there holding the letter for a while. No noise, no music, just me and those words. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel forgotten. I felt seen. Meanwhile, Cameron, he tried damage control. Started posting throwback pics of us as kids. Captioned one, always grateful for the ones who've been there from the beginning. Hash family, hash roots. No tag, no mention. Just my face in his feed used like a prop. That was the final straw. I screenshotted it, sent it to him. You don't get to use me to make yourself look loyal after excluding me for a decade. He replied, that's not what I'm doing. People just miss seeing us together. We used to be a team. So I sent him one last text. We were a team. Until you realized I don't fit the aesthetic. He left that one unread. Fine by me. A week later, Bree's podcast dropped a new episode. Yeah, she has a podcast. Of course she does. This one was called When Boundaries Hurt, and it was 47 minutes of vague self-pity about family tension, toxic reactions, and how some people just can't let go of the past. She never said my name. But come on. Midway through, she said, at some point you have to stop trying to explain yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. I nearly laughed out loud. Lady, I stopped explaining a year ago. Now I just reclaimed. Things went quiet after that. Like truly quiet. Cam stopped posting. Bree muted me. Their circle cousins, extended family, the whole performative parade slowly stopped pinging my radar. You'd think I'd feel sad. But honestly, it felt like finishing a bad book you kept reading out of guilt. You close it. You put it on the shelf. You walk away. Then came the real kicker. 3 months later, I was reviewing applicants for the Design Forward Fellowship, a mentorship program I help run for community college students looking to break into design fields. One name popped up, Cameron Hayes. I blinked, double-checked. Yeah, it was him. He listed career pivot, interested in spatial strategy, and wrote an essay about wanting to make a more grounded impact. And look, I'll give him this. It was decent. You could tell he meant it. But it wasn't just about merit. It was about principle. I stapled a note to the rejection letter. 6 words. Legacy isn't about branding, it's presence. I don't know if he ever read it. Don't care. Because the point wasn't to humiliate him. It was to restore balance. To choose truth over performance. To say finally and without apology, you don't get to use my name while erasing my voice. I went for a walk that night. Same neighborhood I've lived in for years. Same cracked sidewalks. Same flickering streetlight at the corner of Elm and 8th. But it felt different now. Lighter. Like I'd unpacked something that had been rotting in my chest for a decade. Next morning, I woke up to another letter. This one from my mom. Handwritten, 3 pages. Apologies, explanations, excuses, memories. It ended with, we raised 2 boys. One became loud, one became kind. I'm sorry I rewarded the wrong one. I haven't answered her yet. But I will. Eventually. Not for her. For me. Thanksgiving used to be chaos in the best way. Overcooked turkey. That awful canned cranberry sauce no one ever admitted to liking. Folding chairs squeezed between the living room and kitchen. Too many voices in one space, clashing opinions, people yelling about football while some poor soul tried to rescue burnt rolls from the oven. And me, usually the guy refilling everyone's drinks, picking up the pieces, wiping up the spills no one saw happen. That was my role. Support crew, stagehand, background guy with decent wine. But this year, the silence hit different. I made my own dinner. Nothing big, just roasted chicken, garlic, mashed potatoes, a simple pie. Music playing low. Lights dimmed just right. It was calm, predictable, mine. No one called, no invites, not even a passive-aggressive group text. Honestly, that part didn't sting. What got me was the knock on my door around 5:00 p.m. I wasn't expecting anyone, but when I opened it, it was my father, wearing his old wool coat, holding a foil-covered casserole dish. His face looked older, smaller somehow, like time had collapsed a little behind his eyes. You got a minute? I nodded, stepped aside. He walked in slow, set the dish down without a word, then sat at the kitchen table like it still belonged to him. I didn't speak first. I'd done enough of that over the years. Finally, he sighed. I didn't know. About the name, the funding, the property, any of it. I raised an eyebrow. You didn't ask. He winced. Deserved it. That's fair, he said. We got used to you being quiet. We leaned on that. That silence hung in the air again. Not awkward, just real. I poured 2 glasses of water, set one in front of him. No turkey, no grand gestures. He cleared his throat. Your mother's not doing great. She got blindsided by a version of you she didn't realize existed. I said nothing. He added softer now. We thought being neutral meant being loving. But all we really did was ignore the parts of you we didn't understand. I almost laughed. Not in a mean way, just disbelief. You mean the parts of me that didn't ask for attention but needed acknowledgement anyway? He nodded. Exactly that. It wasn't some dramatic Hallmark moment. There were no tears, no hugs, just two grown men sitting at a table chewing over a decade of mistakes in silence and sips of water. Before he left, he said something that landed heavier than I expected. "You've always been the better man, Jordan. I just didn't see it until you stopped trying to be liked." I didn't reply. Didn't need to. Sometimes silence is the loudest answer you can give. A few days later, I got a letter in the mail. From my mom. 3 pages, handwritten, different from her usual tone, less martyr, more honest. She didn't make excuses. She didn't say she was confused. She said she was sorry. I thought keeping the peace meant avoiding hard truths. I see now that I was just keeping you out. You showed up when no one else did, and we made that invisible. I won't ask for forgiveness. I'll just ask if it's too late for honesty. I read it twice. Then I put it in the drawer with Lena's letter. Didn't respond. Not yet. Forgiveness doesn't show up on demand. It walks in slowly, if at all. I started going to therapy around that time. Nothing dramatic. Just needed somewhere to unload the emotional splinters I'd been carrying. My therapist Janine had this calm way of sitting in silence that made you talk more than you planned. One day she said, "You spent years showing up for people who saw your love as utility. Now you're learning that peace doesn't mean silence, it means presence." That hit. 'Cause yeah, I wasn't trying to be quiet anymore. I was trying to be seen. Around mid-December, something shifted. I started cooking more. Hosted game nights with friends who actually laughed with me instead of at me. Taught Lena how to design floor plans on Zoom, her face lighting up like she just unlocked a secret world. I even booked a solo trip to Kyoto, something I'd put off for years. No selfies, no social media flex. Just bamboo forests, matcha, quiet balconies, and a version of myself I'd missed for a long time. Back home, the fallout from the house sale finally settled. Cameron and Bree ended up renting an Airbnb in Ojai for Christmas. Same forced smiles on Instagram, same curated captions. Grateful for chosen family. Whatever. They could have their narrative. I had my own. On Christmas morning, I got one more surprise. A text. Just one line. From Lena. "Uncle Jay, I got you something. Can I send it?" I gave her my P.O. box. 2 days later, it arrived. A little wooden keychain, laser engraved, said, "You're the blueprint." I teared up. No shame. This kid, she got it. She understood something most adults in my life never did. Legacy isn't what you post. It's what you leave behind when the room empties. That's when I decided no more gray zones. If people were going to be in my life, they had to show up whole. No more family illusions. No more emotional bar tabs I didn't run up. I started fresh. Picked up a fixer-upper in Los Feliz. Cozy little bungalow with a sunroom perfect for drafting tables. Painted the walls myself. Hung Lena's keychain by the door. It wasn't revenge anymore. It was restoration. Not just of property or respect, but of identity. Mine. You'd think once the dust settles, the story ends. That after the house, the letters, the messages, all that unraveling, there'd be quiet. And there was. But peace isn't the same as resolution. And sometimes life throws you a curveball just to see if your boundaries are as real as you say they are. It started with a knock. Again. This time I was in sweats eating cereal straight out of the box while rewatching The Bear on mute. I opened the door and there she was. Bree, in person. On my porch. Clutching a leather bag like she was about to ask me to watch her dog. "Hey, can I come in?" I blinked. "Depends. This a drive-by podcast segment or a peace talk?" She didn't smile. I deserved that. Damn right she did. But I stepped aside. She sat on my couch like it was familiar, like we hadn't spoken in months, or that she hadn't dropped passive-aggressive shade all over social media. I didn't sit. I leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "So, I'm pregnant," she said. That threw me. "Okay, congrats, I guess. It's Cameron's. Obviously. I'm not here for your approval." "Great, because you're not getting it." She exhaled hard. "Look, I didn't come to fight. I came because I think Lena deserves to have some stability. She adores you. And if this baby's coming into the world, I don't want it growing up in whatever war this has turned into." I stared at her. "This isn't a war. This is boundaries. And you're confusing peace with compliance." She flinched. "Okay, fine, I hear you. But can you at least meet me halfway?" I laughed. Short, dry. "You mean like how I met all of you halfway for a decade while you treated me like a placeholder?" She didn't respond to that. She just looked tired, which was new. Bree had always been polished, poised, podcast ready, but today her makeup was smudged, her eyes ringed red. Cam's spiraling, she finally said. He's losing sponsors. Some board members pulled out of his nonprofit after the trademark fallout. He doesn't say it, but he's scared. I raised an eyebrow. Is that supposed to make me feel bad? No, it's just the truth. We sat there in silence for a bit. Then she added something that almost made me sit down. He said something last week I've never heard from him. He said, maybe I shouldn't have pushed Jordan out. Maybe he was the one actually building things while I just narrated. That sat heavy. Because yeah, he did just narrate. Bree stood, wiped her eyes, and adjusted her coat. Anyway, I won't ask for anything, but if you ever want to see the baby, you're welcome, that's all. She walked to the door, paused. We were shitty to you. Not gonna pretend we weren't. But I think you scared the hell out of him. Because he never thought you'd walk away. He didn't think you could. I didn't say goodbye. Didn't offer closure. I just nodded once and she left. Later that night, I pulled out Lena's letters. All of them. The thank you notes, the drawings, the one with the robot dog. I kept them in a small wooden box I'd labeled Truth Not Nostalgia. I wasn't ready to forgive Cameron, but I was ready to break the pattern. So I texted Lena, hey, want to come over next weekend? I'll teach you how to build a scale model with recycled paper. Also, I got new markers. 10 seconds later, yes, can I bring brownies? Peace isn't performative. It's paper scraps, broken crayons, and watching a kid glue trees onto a fake neighborhood with her tongue sticking out in focus. That weekend changed something in me. I stopped trying to surgically extract pain from memory. Stopped pretending my scars weren't part of the architecture. They were. They are. They hold me up. New Year's came quietly. No loud party, no midnight kisses. Just me, a record player, a glass of wine, and a note I wrote to myself. You're not the echo anymore. You're the voice. Then came the twist I didn't expect. My father collapsed. Heart failure, minor, caught in time, but it shook me. I went to the hospital not out of duty, but because I wanted to. When I walked in, he was already sitting up, poking at his jello. Didn't expect to see you, he muttered. You're lucky I came, I said, half smiling. Guess I finally gave you a reason to visit. You gave me 1,000. None of them good. He looked out the window for a while. Then he said, I read your blog. I blinked. What blog? The one you ghostwrite, under the pseudonym. Don't ask how I found it. I'm old, not dead. Damn, he really did dig. The story about the blueprint, about designing a life that doesn't include the people who built your trauma. Yeah, that one hit. He paused, then looked at me with this expression I hadn't seen since I was a kid. Something almost like awe. You always had more to say than any of us gave you space for. I'm proud of you, kid. He'd never said that before. Not once. I didn't cry, not in the room. But when I got home, I opened the note again, the one I'd written on New Year's. And underneath it I added, you're not invisible. You never were. They just weren't looking hard enough. The thing about healing is, it doesn't announce itself. There's no banner or parade. No one hands you a certificate that says, congrats, you're whole now. Sometimes it looks like saying no without guilt. Other times it's just sitting in your own space without needing to prove you earned it. For me, it showed up on a Tuesday morning, wrapped in an envelope dropped through my mail slot. No return address. Inside was a photo. Me and Lena hunched over a messy table covered in glue sticks and fake trees. She'd drawn a speech bubble above my head. This one's the bakery. Every neighborhood needs pie. Underneath, she'd scribbled, Uncle J =, best architect of my world. I stared at that for a long, long time. A few weeks later, I got a call from the Mason Grant Foundation. Apparently, someone had nominated me for a mid-career humanitarian award. Said I'd been a quiet architect of safe spaces for underserved kids. I had no clue who sent it in. Still don't. But I said yes to the nomination. Not because I needed recognition, but because if the old version of me could see this now, he'd cry. Then probably build a spreadsheet to process it. Award night was surreal. I wore a dark navy suit. Bree would have approved. Hell, she probably had one just like it. I didn't invite my family. Didn't need to. I brought Lena. She wore a blazer 3 sizes too big and called it architect chic. When I accepted the award, I didn't tell some long dramatic story. I just said, sometimes the strongest buildings are the ones we construct inside ourselves. Quietly, brick by boundary. Applause. Real. Honest, not performative. Cam texted me that night. Just one word, respect. No follow-up, no emojis. I didn't reply. Not out of spite, just no need. The closure was already here. Spring came early. The LA air turned soft sun-drenched. I started working on a community design lab. One room, 5 desks open every Saturday to any local teen who wanted to learn how to build. Not just buildings, but options. Lena came every week. Sometimes she brought friends. Sometimes she just came for snacks. Every time she brought joy. And that's when I realized I hadn't just walked away from toxic people. I'd walked towards something. Then one afternoon, while sorting materials for a model house demo, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I let it ring out, but then it buzzed again, same number. I answered. Jordan. It was my mom. Her voice was smaller than I remembered. I heard about the award. Silence. Then, I was proud. I am. I just wanted to say that out loud. I didn't say anything at first. Then, thanks. Another pause. Are you happy? I thought about it. Looked around the studio. At the sketches on the wall, the laughter outside Lena showing a kid how to use an X-Acto knife. Yeah, I said, I really am. She exhaled like she'd been holding that breath for a decade. Later that week, I got a letter in the mail. Not from her. From Cameron. It was short. Typed, formal, no frills. But at the bottom in blue pen, he'd scribbled something extra. You were the blueprint. I was just the paint. I smiled. Folded the letter. Put it in the box with the others. I wasn't collecting apologies. I was collecting closure. One Saturday while packing up the lab, Lena looked up at me and said, Do you think bad families can get better? Caught me off guard. I sat down next to her. I think bad patterns can stop, and that's usually how better starts. She nodded slowly, thoughtful. Are we stopping the pattern? Yeah, I said. I think we are. Months passed. Life got simpler, fuller. My house finally felt like home, not just a bunker from family fallout. I started sleeping better, laughing more, even dated a bit. Nothing serious, just open again. The big moment. It came the following Thanksgiving. Lena asked if she could host Friendsgiving at the design lab. Said she wanted to make mac and cheese and set up mood lighting. I let her. She invited some classmates, a few of the younger kids who'd aged into leadership roles. I watched them eat on mismatched chairs, laughing like the world wasn't falling apart outside. That night, I gave a toast. Simple, casual, real, to chosen family, to messy starts, and to finally realizing being included means nothing if it costs your self-worth. They cheered. Then someone turned on a Spotify playlist full of terrible 90s throwbacks, and I danced. Badly. Lena got it on video. Posted it with the caption, Uncle J Architect Mentor Vibe Killer. I laughed so hard I nearly dropped my paper plate. I didn't need validation anymore. Didn't crave a seat at the wrong table. I'd built my own. Smaller, warmer. Everyone got a real chair. Last week, I got a postcard from Oregon. Just trees, mountains, a handwritten note on the back. From my father. Driving through here made me think of you. It's peaceful. I hope you are too. And for the first time, I didn't just hope. I knew. I was. This wasn't revenge. This was reclamation. Not a war won. A life claimed. And as for the family who once forgot me, they'll be fine. But me, I'm better. Story 2. I used to think betrayal would feel loud like a crash, a scream, maybe a punch to the gut. Turns out it sounds more like the slow click of an empty bank account and a cigarette lighter flicking on in your own living room. My name's Riley, and this is the story of how my mother Lorraine robbed my kid's future right from under our roof with a smile on her face and smoke in her lungs. It still messes with my head thinking about how it all started so quietly. Back then, life wasn't perfect, but it was stable. I was 35, married to Jo, the only woman who's ever made me feel like I wasn't born to struggle. We had 2 kids, Caleb 10 and Ruby 7, both chaos in human form and smarter than I ever was at their age. We'd finally bought our first home. White porch, squeaky screen door, overgrown grass in the back that I swore I'd mow this weekend every weekend. But it was ours. And more importantly, we had a dream: save enough to send our kids to college without saddling them with debt. So we did what nobody in my family ever did. We planned. Opened a 529, skipped big vacations, turned down overtime so we could gig on the side. I even picked up weekend HVAC repair jobs in the dead of summer just to squeeze in extra deposits. And by spring of 2023, we'd stashed away just over $91,000. Yeah, $91,000. Gone now. But I'll get to that. It started with a call from Lorraine, my mom, the kind of woman who could guilt trip a priest and light a cigarette while praying. She'd slipped on ice, said her knee was shot, and she couldn't handle the stairs in her condo anymore. Just for a few weeks, she said. Joe wasn't thrilled. She tried to hide it, but I knew. We were finally finding a rhythm, just the four of us, and Lorraine was a lot. Think denim vests, vodka with breakfast, and unsolicited opinions about your parenting. But she was my mother. So we cleared out the office, set her up downstairs, and told the kids Grandma was moving in for a bit. Lorraine acted like she was doing us a favor. I'll keep an eye on the kids, she'd chirp, puffing away on our porch like it was a bingo hall from 1992. At first it wasn't awful, just weird. She had this old green coin purse that she treated like it held state secrets, always clutching it, and every so often she'd pull out a crumpled bill for Caleb or Ruby, $2 here, a quarter there. Said it was for teaching them the value of a buck. Cute, right? Then things got off. Joe's necklace disappeared, just gone. Turned up in a sock drawer 3 days later. We figured the kids were playing pretend. My debit card got declined at Costco. I chalked it up to a bill I forgot to pay. Ruby swore her birthday money was missing. Maybe you spent it and forgot, I said. Lies. All of it. But I didn't want to believe the truth, sitting right across from me on my porch every morning, flicking ash into my hydrangeas. The moment everything cracked open was the night Joe opened the laptop and froze. Riley, the college account, she said, voice flat. What about it? There's a $6,000 withdrawal here. From last month. That can't be right. It's not the only one. My stomach dropped. We logged into the portal and sat there in silence as we scrolled. Month by month. Drain after drain. Until the number staring back at us wasn't $91,000 anymore. It was $3,850. That was the moment I knew. Not suspected. Knew. Next morning I asked Lorraine if she'd seen anything weird with the bank. She didn't even flinch. Just lit a cigarette and said, "You always said you wanted the kids to be strong. Let 'em earn it." No apology, no denial. Just that smug little smirk, like she'd taught us a lesson we should thank her for. I wanted to scream. Instead, I sat there, cold rage buzzing behind my teeth while she exhaled poison into our living room. Joe came in halfway through the conversation. Didn't say a word. Just leaned against the wall and watched me unravel. "You stole from your grandkids," I said. "They'll survive," she said. "Maybe they'll even grow up tougher for it." She meant it. We didn't kick her out that day. I should have. But my hands were still too shaky and my head couldn't wrap around the betrayal. Instead, I just nodded and walked out onto the porch, the one she'd claimed like a throne, and stared at the lawn I never mowed. For weeks we moved around each other like ghosts. Lorraine puffed and muttered and played Wheel of Fortune like nothing happened. I stopped making eye contact. Joe avoided her completely. The kids, bless them, didn't notice, or pretended not to. But I noticed. I noticed every time Joe's smile cracked. I noticed every time Caleb asked why we didn't go to the movies anymore. I noticed every time I looked at my mom and felt absolutely nothing but the weight of everything she'd taken. Then one night, Joe found me sitting at the table staring at our bank printouts again. "She can't stay," she said. "We have to protect them, even if you won't." That's when it hit me. This wasn't about fixing things with Lorraine. This was about fixing me for the family I'd built, not the one I was born into. The next morning I told her, calm, clear, "You have 1 month to find somewhere else." She laughed. "You think I have options? I'm your mother." "No," I said. "You were." What followed were some of the ugliest weeks of my life. Doors slammed, food went missing, cigarettes accidentally left smoldering near Ruby's blanket. One night she screamed from the bathroom for 2 hours that I was ungrateful and would end up alone. Then one Saturday we came home from the store and the door was wide open. She was gone. And so were the coin jar, Joe's wedding ring, my laptop, and the emergency cash stash from the laundry room. There was a note on the table. "You don't deserve what I gave you. Good luck." I didn't cry. I didn't even blink. I just picked it up, folded it once, and threw it in the trash. Because this wasn't the end. It was the start of something I never thought I'd need to do. Rebuild our lives from the ashes of the woman who raised me. We thought the worst was over after Lorraine vanished. Honestly, we were even a little relieved. But if I've learned anything from this, it's that the quiet after betrayal isn't peace, it's a setup. A calm before the second explosion. Joe and I spent that first week in what I can only describe as survival mode, changing passwords, calling our bank, reporting the stolen items. The cops came, took a statement, and gave us the same tired sigh I'd heard 100 times growing up. "We'll file it, but unless you can prove it was her." We couldn't. She was smart, always has been. Took just enough to stay under the felony line, didn't leave fingerprints, didn't use our cards directly. Just vanished like smoke. We never even found the green coin purse. Meanwhile, our kids kept asking when Grandma was coming back. Ruby cried the first night. Caleb asked if she was mad at him. I lied. Said she was just traveling for a while. That lie still burns in my throat. By week 2, Joe sat me down and said, "We need to contact a lawyer." I stared at her like she'd slapped me. A lawyer for what? Identity theft, fraud, anything we can find. I want to make sure she can never do this to us or anyone else again. I hesitated. Joe's always been the tough one. I'm the fixer, the peacemaker. But this time there was nothing to fix. There was only damage to limit. So we found someone. Her name was Denise. Sharp eyes, sharp suits, zero tolerance for BS. The kind of woman who looked like she could win a court case and clean out your fridge in the same breath. We gave her everything. Bank statements, emails, screenshots. Joe even pulled out a sticky note where Lorraine had written down Caleb's social security number just in case. That sticky note made Denise raise both eyebrows. This wasn't impulsive, she said. She planned this. Hearing that made something twist inside me. Because it wasn't just a bad decision, it was premeditated. She'd been collecting data on us like a scam artist. Not a grandma, not my mother, just a thief in mom's clothing. The next wave hit 2 weeks later. We got a letter from a student loan servicer. In Caleb's name. Caleb, my 10-year-old. The envelope looked routine. No warning, no threats. Just welcome to your new financial journey and a balance $19,450. Joe thought it was a joke. I wanted to believe it too. But Denise didn't laugh. She took one look and said, "She's using their identities." Turns out Lorraine had pulled social security numbers for all 4 of us, opened accounts, applied for loans. Some got denied, others approved in small amounts. All of it trickling in under our radar because who checks for college debt under a child's name? Denise started filing fraud reports with the credit bureaus. I spent hours on the phone with agencies trying to untangle fake debts. It was like chasing ghosts through a fog bank. Every answer opened another question. How long had she been doing this? Why didn't we notice? How much damage had she done? Then came the knock on the door. It was late, maybe 8:30 p.m. Caleb and Ruby were curled up on the couch with popcorn. Joe was grading papers at the kitchen table. I opened the door and 2 people stood there. One man, one woman, both in plain clothes but with badges hanging around their necks. Child Protective Services, the woman said. I didn't move, just blinked. I'm sorry, what? We received an anonymous report. Concerns about financial instability, neglect, possible substance use in the home. I swear my heart stopped beating for a full 5 seconds. Joe appeared behind me, pale as the walls, and asked, "Is this a mistake?" They weren't rude, just cold, professional. Like they'd done this too many times to be emotional anymore. They looked in our fridge, peeked in the kids' bedrooms, asked if we'd ever left the children unattended, if there'd been yelling or visible trauma in the home. Caleb kept asking who they were. Ruby hid behind Joe's leg. And I wanted to scream, because I knew who made that call. Lorraine. No one else would know the things they were asking. No one else would know to suggest that I had a history of emotional outbursts, that Joe might be under too much stress to parent consistently, that Ruby was acting withdrawn. They didn't remove our kids, but they told us they'd be checking with their schools, that this wasn't over, and then they left. Joe sat on the floor for an hour afterward, just crying into her hands. I've only seen her do that twice in our entire marriage. That was one of them. That night, I didn't sleep. I just kept hearing Lorraine's voice in my head. If they can't make it on their own, they don't deserve it. And I realized she wasn't trying to teach us a lesson. She was trying to ruin us. The next morning, I found a letter on our doorstep. No envelope, no return address. Just a folded piece of notebook paper with one line. I gave you life. You owe me. That's when I stopped seeing Lorraine as broken or misguided. That's when I started seeing her for what she was, a predator. Not the kind with claws, but the kind that smiles while they take. That studies you. That waits until you're vulnerable. And then strikes where it'll hurt the most. Joe filed a restraining order the next day. We added cameras to every corner of the house. I started carrying my old baseball bat to the front door anytime someone knocked. This wasn't a family problem anymore. This was survival. And yet the real horror hadn't even started. Because Denise called 2 days later, said she'd been digging deeper. Riley, she said you're not going to like this, but you need to know this goes back years. What do you mean years? I mean, over a decade. We found accounts opened in your name dating back to 2012. Auto loans, credit cards, a personal loan to someone named Everett Langley ring a bell. It didn't. I said no. That's because he's not real, she said. She used him as a co-signer on an education loan. It was your information. Your signature. Forged. Jesus. She didn't just steal your kid's future, Denise said. She's been feeding off yours since before Caleb was born. I don't remember hanging up the phone. I just remember sitting in the garage staring at the oil stains on the floor, wondering how many pieces of myself she'd stolen without me ever noticing. This wasn't a bad year. This wasn't a phase. This was a lifetime. And Lorraine, she wasn't just a thief. She was a professional. And she wasn't done yet. After Denise's call, everything changed. Up until then, part of me was still hoping this was temporary. A fixable mess, a family tragedy with a neat bow at the end. But the truth was clearer now. Lorraine didn't just burn bridges, she built her whole life on top of the ashes. She had been stealing from me long before I ever became a husband, a father, a homeowner. Before I even knew what credit was, she was already spending mine. Joe said it best, we weren't her family. We were her resource. Denise started piecing together the paper trail. It was like peeling an onion soaked in gasoline. Every layer revealed another bomb waiting to explode. Turns out, Lorraine had opened her first fraudulent account in my name when I was 19. A department store card, then a small personal loan, then bigger ones, $10,000 here, $25,000 there. Some were paid just enough to stay hidden. Others were left to rot. That's why my credit had always felt weird. Not bad, just off. I thought it was because of old student loans or missed bills, but it was her. Always her. She even opened a checking account in my name in another state, used it to funnel money through prepaid cards and fake business names. The kind of stuff you read about in online scam stories and think, who falls for that? People like me, apparently. People who trust their mom. Joe and I sat down and told Caleb and Ruby the truth, not everything but enough. That Grandma had made some really bad choices. That we were working with lawyers, that it wasn't their fault. Ruby just asked if she was still mad at her. I didn't know what to say. But Caleb, he nodded quietly and said I knew she was lying when she said the tooth fairy brought $20. And somehow that hurt worse than everything else. 3 weeks later, we got another surprise. Amanda called. My sister. We hadn't spoken in over a year. She moved away young, cut ties with Lorraine at 22 and never looked back. I always thought it was harsh. Cold. Turns out it was smart. Hey, she said, her voice tight and tired. You got a minute? I stepped outside. Sat on the porch steps with my phone pressed to my cheek like I was bracing for a punch. I heard about the police report, she said. Figured it wouldn't be long. How'd you know? She laughed. Not a happy laugh. A dry, hollow sound like dust rattling in a box. Because she did it to me too. I went quiet. What? Amanda explained that back in college, she got denied for a student loan because she supposedly already had one. Only she didn't. Guess who did? I tried reporting it, she said. I told Dad once. He didn't believe me. Said I was just angry. That hit hard. Our dad died when we were in our 20s. I remember him always trying to play peacekeeper, begging Amanda to call Lorraine on Christmas, even when she refused. And now I get it. Lorraine had poisoned every branch of our family tree. She didn't divide us by accident. She divided us so we'd never compare notes. So none of us would see the full picture. I'm sorry, I told Amanda, meaning it with every inch of my soul. I'm sorry too, she said, but it's not your fault. That woman isn't capable of love. She never was. We ended the call quietly. No promises to visit, no Hallmark reunion. But still it felt like one crack in the wall had started to let light in. Denise filed identity theft affidavits with every lender Lorraine had touched. Then she helped us freeze Caleb and Ruby's credit until they turned 18. One morning we found a prepaid envelope stuffed in our mailbox. No postage, no return address. Inside were 3 printouts, copies of our original 529 plans. The ones Lorraine drained. At the top scribbled in red pen, now maybe they'll earn it the hard way. Joe shook with rage. I took the papers and didn't say a word. I just burned them in the backyard fire pit. I didn't want her words in our house anymore. A few days later, Denise called again. She took out a life insurance policy. What? In your name. You're the insured. She's the beneficiary. The policy was opened 2 years ago. I sat down hard. Is that even legal? It's insurance fraud unless the insured person gives consent. I'm looking into how she bypassed verification. My chest felt tight, like all the air had been sucked out of the room. She's not just desperate, I said. She's dangerous. Agreed. Joe overheard the call and said nothing. Just walked into the kids' room and kissed their foreheads like she was trying to memorize the way they breathed. That night I checked every lock on the doors, every window. And then I sat with Joe on the couch and whispered, "What if she's not finished?" Joe just stared ahead. "She's not," she said. 2 weeks passed. Nothing, no letters, no calls, no CPS, nothing. It felt worse than when she was active. At least then we could prepare. Now we were just waiting. Then came the email. From an address I didn't recognize. L.Wright1092@fastmail.com. Subject: your turn. The body was short. "You always thought you were better. But you got everything from me. I just took it back. Call it interest. And if you think this is the end, you don't know anything about survival." I forwarded it to Denise. She called me within the hour. "This email is traceable," she said, "and I've got a contact at the FBI Cybercrime Division. Want me to escalate?" For the first time in weeks, I didn't hesitate. "Yes," I said. "Burn her down." The email was the last straw. Denise escalated it to the feds. Identity theft, wire fraud, insurance fraud, unauthorized loans. It was enough to build a case, especially with the amount she'd stolen. Not just from us, but from others too, as it turned out. Because once the investigators dug in, they uncovered more. Lorraine had burned through a dozen identities. Fake addresses, P.O. boxes in 3 states, accounts opened under dead relatives. She'd even applied for COVID relief loans using my old business license from when I was freelancing HVAC work back in 2017. She wasn't just a thief, she was an ecosystem of fraud. And she was unraveling. The FBI assigned an agent named Torres. Dry voice, quiet eyes. He didn't make promises, but he made things move. Within 2 weeks, he'd confirmed what we suspected: Lorraine had used Ruby's SSN to open a credit card in Oklahoma. "She's slipping," he said, "getting sloppy. You're not her only victim, but you're the key. She built her scam around your name." I didn't know whether to feel honored or horrified. Maybe both. The break came in the form of a surveillance photo. Torres emailed it with no subject line. It showed Lorraine leaving a check-cashing spot in Baton Rouge, wearing that same ratty yellow windbreaker I remembered from my high school graduation. The one she said made her look like sunshine on crack. She looked old. Thin, hair matted, skin like leather. But her eyes? Same fire. Same look she gave me when I was 6 and spilled orange juice on the carpet. "You owe me." That was always her story. We were never children. We were accounts, emotional ATMs, investments she felt entitled to cash out whenever she wanted. But now, finally, someone else saw it too. Torres coordinated with local law enforcement. A sting, quiet, surgical. They picked her up outside a bus station 2 days later. She had 3 IDs in her purse, 1 in her real name, 2 fake, along with 7 prepaid debit cards, a phone full of bank apps, and a notebook labeled Plan B. Inside Plan B, our names, all 4 of us. When Torres called to tell me she was in custody, I felt nothing at first. Just empty. No relief, no celebration, just a silence I didn't recognize. But later that night, Joe and I sat on the porch with mugs of coffee, the kids asleep, the crickets chirping like life was back to normal. And I finally exhaled. It was over. Not fixed, not healed, but over. The charges were federal. She was denied bail. They offered us a chance to speak at sentencing. A victim impact statement. I didn't want to at first, but Joe said something I'll never forget. If we don't speak, she still owns the story. So I wrote it out, told the court what it feels like to be gutted by someone who shares your blood, to watch your kids cry over someone they thought loved them, to rebuild a life with duct tape and hope while your own mother robs you in your sleep. Joe spoke too. She was calmer, stronger. My children, she said, deserve a future free from the shadow of her cruelty. Amanda flew in for the sentencing. She sat with us in the second row. Lorraine didn't look at us once. But when the judge read the sentence, 12 years without parole, she flinched. Not because of the prison time, but because it meant the game was over. Her access was gone. Her audience gone. She was no longer the puppet master. She was just Lorraine, alone. And I swear that's what broke her. The months after were quiet. The fraud cleanup took time, but Denise was a pit bull. She got Ruby and Caleb's credit restored, helped us recover a portion of the stolen funds. The rest gone, but we made peace with that. Amanda and I talked more. Joe started sleeping through the night again. And one evening, Caleb asked, "Is Grandma in jail?" We told him yes, and we told him why. He thought about it for a minute, then said, "Good, she lied too much." And that was it. No drama, no questions, just a kid who knew right from wrong. Life moved on. We bought a new laptop. Joe's wedding ring was never recovered, but we replaced it anyway. A simple band with a sapphire stone. Ruby helped pick it out. We reopened new college funds this time with ironclad protections and a credit freeze so thick not even a ghost could penetrate it. I started teaching HVAC classes at the local tech school a few nights a week, helping kids who reminded me of myself. Kids who didn't have much but were willing to try. Joe started writing again. Short stories, essays, and on a quiet Sunday she handed me one. It was titled Inheritance. The last line, "Sometimes the only thing you can pass on is the choice to be better." We never heard from Lorraine again. No letters, no calls, nothing. Part of me wonders if she even thinks about us, but the better part of me doesn't care. We survived. More than that, we lived. Ruby made the honor roll this year. Caleb started learning guitar. Joe and I fight less now. Love louder, laugh more. There are still scars. There always will be. But scars aren't shameful. They're proof you healed. Sometimes I walk past the box where I keep the court documents and the emails and the photos. All the proof of what she did. I don't look inside anymore. I just leave it there. A quiet monument to what we escaped, what we overcame. And when I tuck Ruby in at night or high-five Caleb after he nails a song or hold Joe's hand on the porch swing under a quiet sky, I think this is our real inheritance. Not bitterness, not betrayal, but the decision to break the cycle, to be better, to love harder, to end the story she started and begin a new one of our own. Story 3. Ever gotten a text so absurd it made you laugh before you realized you wanted to throw your phone through a window? That was me. 3 weeks before my grandparents' 60th anniversary party, I got this message from my cousin. "Hey, about the seating. There's no room for you. Hope you understand." And I did smile at first, but not because I was okay. It was the kind of smile you wear when the weight finally shifts from disbelief to clarity. When betrayal shows its face and you realize you've been playing the fool in someone else's spotlight. Let me rewind. My name's Tessa. I'm 33, live in Chicago, work as a project manager for a logistics company, and no, I don't have a husband or kids, which in my family automatically makes you either the helper or the one who's probably too busy for real life, depending on who's talking. 8 months ago at a chaotic summer cookout in my Uncle Mark's backyard, my cousin Lila clinked her wine glass with dramatic flair and said, "We need to throw the biggest anniversary party ever for Nana and Pop." Everyone cheered, toasted, nodded like it was already a done deal. My grandparents Ruth and Marvin were the foundation of our sprawling family. Every major memory we shared, holiday breakfasts, lake trips, 4th of July fireworks, all started with them. 60 years of marriage. That's not just a milestone, that's a legacy. And I love them like crazy. But I should have run the second Lila turned to me and said, "You're going to plan it right. You're the organized one. No please, no if you have time. Just a given." I laughed, pretending I had a choice. I always do that, but I said yes because I believed stupidly in hindsight that family shows up for each other. And I show up. Always. So I built it. From scratch. The next 6 months were a masterclass in family dysfunction. Everyone had opinions. Nobody had initiative. I made spreadsheets, budget drafts, guest lists, scheduled vendor meetings between Zoom calls at work. Lila ghosted me after suggesting a rooftop venue with a view. Uncle Mark said he'd chip in later. My Aunt Donna texted me things like, "Can we do gluten-free and dairy-free cake?" No, you get one or the other. My brother Jake, the only sane one in the bunch, offered emotional support via memes and pizza. The rest MIA. Eventually, I booked at a beautiful waterfront hall just outside the city with floor-to-ceiling windows and vintage charm Nana would adore. I hired a band Marvin used to play trumpet with in his 20s. Got Ruth's favorite flower yellow tulips flown in from Holland. Seriously. Total cost just over $50, 000. And yeah, I paid for it. Every last cent. Because when everyone else got quiet, I stepped up. I dipped into my savings, the money I was going to use for a down payment someday, and wrote the biggest check of my life. It was worth it, I told myself. This is for them, not for anyone else. But I didn't tell anyone. I wanted the party to be seamless. I didn't need credit or applause, just the satisfaction of seeing their faces light up when they walked into the room. Then 3 weeks before the event, I got the text from Lila. Hey, about the seating, it's tight. You might have to sit this one out. No hard feelings. I stared at the screen, reread it 3 times. Me, sit this one out. I paid for the entire thing. I planned it from scratch. I sacrificed my weekends, my money, and my sanity. And now I wasn't invited. I should have been furious. Maybe I was, but what I felt first was clarity. This wasn't about love or gratitude. This was about control, about people who saw generosity as weakness and kindness as a resource to exploit. I didn't respond. Instead, I did something none of them saw coming. I got quiet. I made some calls. See, Lila had requested the vendor contacts to take over from here. She told the coordinator I was stressed and wanted to step back, said she'd be handling final details. What she didn't know was I had contingency clauses in every single contract. Nothing could be changed without my written approval. So I started tweaking. Not canceling, not sabotaging, just redirecting. The band's still playing, but with a different set list. Heavy jazz, chaotic, loud, nothing like the classic dinner tunes they'd rehearsed. The flowers. Oh, they were still arriving. But instead of soft tulips, they'd get tropical centerpieces the size of toddlers. Think Moana on steroids. The cake, still 3 tiers, still expensive. But instead of elegant gold and ivory, I changed the theme to Vegas Baby. Neon frosting, edible glitter, and tiny plastic slot machines on top. Every change perfectly legal, all according to contract. And nobody knew, except for one person. Jake. He called me that night. You're not really going, are you? Nope, I said. He paused. You okay? Honestly, I exhaled. I've never felt lighter. Because here's what I realized. They didn't leave me out by mistake. They left me out on purpose. And I'm done begging to be included in a family that only wants me when I'm useful. The night of the party, I stayed home, made pasta, lit a candle, put on an old rom-com and ignored my phone. But Jake didn't. He went. He watched. And oh, the texts I got. Lila's panicking. Flowers just arrived. She's screaming. Cake looks like a disco accident. Aunt Donna is crying. Pop keeps saying, who picked this music? I feel like I'm in a French cartoon. Nana's loving it. She just said, it's all ridiculous. I kinda love it. And finally, 127 missed calls. All from Lila. You broke her brain. I smiled. Because it wasn't about revenge. It was about showing them that love isn't transactional. That you don't get to erase someone just because they stop giving. And the best part, I wasn't done yet. The morning after the party, my phone buzzed at 6:41 a.m. It was Jake. You up? I replied with one word. Yep, we need to talk. Call me. I called. His voice came through low and ragged like someone who'd just returned from a war zone. You would not believe last night. Try me. So he told me. The room was chaos. Lila had shown up in a rhinestone dress like she was hosting a red carpet gala. Uncle Mark was pacing like a man trying to suppress a midlife crisis. Aunt Donna nearly fainted when she saw the flamingo-shaped centerpiece on her table. The jazz band leaned full into dissonant saxophone solos. People were openly arguing over the theme. The cake took 4 people to carry it in. When the lights hit the edible glitter, it reflected like a disco ball onto the ceiling. And Nana, she laughed so hard she had to sit down. She loved it, I asked, stunned. Loved it, Jake said. She told Pop, this is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen, and I've seen your dancing. I smiled. Then Jake's voice dropped. But there's something else you need to know. What? Lila told them you canceled. Said you backed out last minute because you couldn't handle the pressure. I froze. She what? Yeah, Nana was confused. Pop was kind of quiet about it, but I could tell he didn't buy it. He kept looking around the room like he was waiting for you to show up. That hit me hard. I never wanted to hurt my grandparents. Not ever. I didn't care about the family's opinion, but lying to them, that was a line I hadn't expected Lila to cross. She really told them I quit. I asked already knowing the answer. Yup. She even cried a little. Said you ghosted. Said she had to take over because you left them hanging. And there it was. The rewrite. The revisionist history she was trying to sculpt brick by brick on top of the party I built. Except one problem: she didn't own the foundation. I did. The next few days were silent. Too silent. No calls from Lila, no apology texts, nothing from Uncle Mark, Aunt Donna, or anyone else who'd enjoyed the night I paid for. It was like I'd been surgically erased from the narrative. Jake checked in every day. Still nothing he'd ask. I'd shake my head. And then 5 days later, I got a voicemail. From Nana. Her voice was soft, confused, but sweet as always. "Hi, sweetheart, it's Nana. We missed you at the party. Lila told us you had to cancel, but, well, I just wanted to hear it from you. Hope everything's all right. Love you." I sat down on my couch and stared at the wall. Then I played the message again. And again. She didn't sound angry. She sounded worried, which made me furious. Not at her. At them. At all the people who had taken what I gave in good faith and weaponized it for their egos, who lied to the two people I loved most in the world because the truth was too inconvenient. It wasn't enough to uninvite me. They had to erase me. Well, I don't erase easy. I wrote Nana back. A letter. Handwritten, because that's how she and Pop preferred it. I told her the truth. Not every gritty detail, but enough. I told her how I planned the party, how I paid for it, how Lila texted me 3 weeks before and said there wasn't room. I told her I didn't cancel, I was removed, and I didn't want to ruin her evening, so I stayed quiet. But most importantly, I told her this. I didn't want to be part of the spectacle. I just wanted to make sure you were celebrated. I hope you felt loved, because that's all I ever wanted. I sealed the letter and dropped it in the mailbox that afternoon. 2 days later, Nana called me. She was crying. "Tessa, baby, why didn't you come to us sooner?" Her voice cracked and I felt a knot form in my throat, because I didn't want to make it about me. "Oh, sweetheart," she whispered, "it was never supposed to be about anyone else." Pop took the phone then. I knew something was off, he said. The second I saw that cake, I laughed through my tears. "That was a creative decision. You always had flair," he said warmly. "But don't ever let anyone steal your voice again. You hear me?" I nodded. "I won't." That weekend, Nana invited me and Jake over for lunch. Just the 4 of us. She cooked. Pop made his famous sweet tea. Jake brought dessert. And over lemon chicken and laughter we talked. Really talked. About family. About boundaries. About how love shouldn't come with conditions or exclusions. "We're not mad," Nana said. "We're heartbroken it happened this way. But we're proud of how you handled it." Jake raised his glass. "To Tessa, our own event planner, therapist, and cake saboteur." Everyone laughed. It was the first time I'd felt like myself in weeks. But the story wasn't over. Because while I was healing, Lila was still out there, spinning her version. And Pop? Well, Pop had a plan. The next day I got a call. Not from Nana. From Janine, the event coordinator. "Hey, just a heads up," she said. "Lila's asking for a full refund." I nearly choked. "What?" She said the party was a disaster, and she's trying to dispute the payment. She didn't make the payment. "I know," Janine said coolly. "Her name's not on anything. You're the primary. Only you can request a refund." I paused. And then I smiled. "Janine," I said, "do me a favor. Send her my regards, and then deny the claim." "With pleasure." After Janine shut Lila down, the silence was almost satisfying. Almost. But the thing about people like Lila, they don't stop, they regroup. I could feel it like a storm gathering over calm water. The quiet wasn't peace, it was strategy. Jake texted me later that day. "Guess who just posted a party recap on Facebook?" Of course she did. The post was long, dramatic, and full of gratefuls. So grateful to everyone who helped make Nana and Pop's 60th magical. Coordinating this event was a labor of love. She posted a dozen filtered photos, Lila posing with Nana, Lila adjusting Pop's tie, Lila raising a champagne glass mid-toast like she was hosting a royal gala. And the kicker, special thanks to everyone who stepped up when others couldn't. Others. As in, me. Jake sent a follow-up message. She didn't just take credit. She's trying to rewrite the entire story. He was right. She didn't just lie. She reframed the whole thing like she was the hero in a family epic and I was the flake who backed out and left everyone hanging. The comments flooded in. "You're amazing, Lila. Everything looked perfect. You should be a wedding planner. Your grandparents must be so proud of you." I sat on my couch staring at my phone with a tight jaw and a pounding heart. She didn't just erase me, she replaced me. But here's the thing about the truth: you can bury it, you can hide it, but eventually it knocks. And I was done being quiet. I didn't respond online. No dramatic comment thread. No public takedown. I'm not built like that. Instead, I picked up the phone and called Pop. "Hey," I said, "you sitting down?" "I'm always sitting," he chuckled. "I want to do something, and I want your blessing." He listened as I explained. When I finished, he said, "You do what you need to do. We're behind you." That was all I needed. I started small. A photo slideshow. Nothing fancy, just a clean, simple timeline. Behind-the-scenes shots from my planning process. Email screenshots confirming my payments, the receipt for the venue, the deposit slips for the band, the florist, the bakery, a picture of the first draft seating chart with my name in bold front and center. Then the kicker, a copy of the text Lila sent me. "Maybe you could sit this one out." I blurred her number, covered names except my own, and at the very end, a note in big bold letters. I didn't want credit. I wanted them to feel loved. But since someone decided to rewrite history, here's a little reminder of the real one. I posted it on my own Facebook, my first public post in years. No hashtags, no tags, just truth. And I went to bed. By morning, it had over 200 reactions. By noon, 600. The shares started multiplying. Old friends, distant cousins, even coworkers started commenting. "Wait, what? This makes me sick. You deserve better, Tessa." I was at the party. I knew something was off. Jake texted me a screenshot of Lila's account. It had gone private. He followed it up with, "You broke her internet." Part of me felt a little bad, but a bigger part relieved. I hadn't done anything cruel. I just told the truth clearly and without apology. And for once, people were listening. The next surprise came in the form of an email. Subject line from Donna. Aunt Donna. The same woman who'd once forgotten to include me in the group gift for Nana's birthday, then sent a thank you email to everyone who mattered. I opened it. "Tessa, I saw your post. I had no idea what was really going on. Lila made it sound like you quit. I'm sorry for not asking questions. That's on me. Your grandparents raised us better than this. I hope we can talk soon." I stared at it for a long time. Was it real or just damage control? Honestly, I didn't know yet, but I replied anyway. "Thanks for reaching out. Let's talk after things cool off." Because healing doesn't happen on a timeline, but accountability is a start. Then came the call I didn't expect. From Nana. "I've never seen Pop so fired up," she said. "He's telling everyone who asks what really happened." I smiled. "He's a good man." "You're a good woman," she said. And just like that, the ache I'd been carrying started to lift. It wasn't about the party. It was about being seen, heard, respected. "You know," Nana added gently, "we always knew you were the one doing the work." Lila made a lot of noise, but noise isn't the same as effort. That nearly broke me. We hung up a few minutes later, and I just sat on the floor letting the weight fall off. Then Jake called. "You feel like taking a ride?" he asked. "Where to?" "You'll see." We drove an hour north, out past the suburbs and into the hills where trees outnumber people. Eventually, he pulled into a narrow driveway surrounded by tall hedges. A small inn sat at the end of the path, glowing in the late afternoon light. Cozy, quiet, picturesque. "What is this?" I asked. Jake handed me an envelope. Inside was a reservation confirmation. 2 nights, private suite, spa access, dinner included. I looked up at him confused. "Nana and Pop asked me to book it," he said. "For you. For me. They said every celebration should have a reset. And you've earned one." I stayed there that weekend. No social media, no phones, no drama. Just me, silence, and the knowledge that I didn't owe anyone an explanation for valuing myself. That weekend became a turning point, not because it erased the betrayal, but because it reminded me who I was when I wasn't carrying other people's weight. By the time I got home, Lila's entire narrative had collapsed. She hadn't apologized, but her silence was its own kind of surrender, more a retreat than remorse. Jake said it best. She's not sorry, she's exposed. And that was enough. For now. Because I wasn't looking for revenge anymore. I was rebuilding. And the foundation was stronger this time. Made of truth. I didn't hear from Lila for 6 weeks. Not a call. Not a message. Not even a vague subtweet. Which for Lila was basically a silent scream. But silence can say a lot. She'd tried to steal the spotlight, rewrite the story, and bury the truth under a pile of glitter and group photos. And the truth refused to stay buried. The Facebook post kept circulating. People I hadn't spoken to in years reached out, friends of friends, even one of my old teachers. "Your story was so raw, it hit me. I've been the quiet one too. Thank you for writing it." You reminded me not to shrink myself. And that was the moment I understood. This was never just about a party. It was about all the times people like Lila took credit, took space, took oxygen while people like me made things happen in the background. Unseen, unthanked, but essential. And now I wasn't background anymore. Jake and I had lunch the next Saturday. Sunny patio iced tea laughter echoing off the sidewalk. He raised his glass. To survival, he said. I clinked it. To boundaries. Same thing in this family. We laughed, but there was truth in it. Because survival in a family like ours meant knowing when to show up and when to walk away. 2 weeks later, Nana invited me to help clean out their attic. She said it like it was a chore. I knew better. It was a peace offering. A quiet day, just us away from the noise. We sat on creaky floorboards surrounded by boxes of memories. Photos, letters, Marvin's old records. One box held birthday cards from every grandchild. I flipped through them absently until I saw it. A folded piece of notebook paper age-yellowed written in Nana's elegant script. To my future self, 1982. She blushed when she saw me reading it. Oh Lord, she said laughing. That was just silly stuff. But I kept reading. It was a letter to her future self, a reminder to stay kind, patient, and brave, to remember who she was, to protect her peace. At the bottom, one line was underlined twice. Don't let people confuse loudness with leadership. I looked at her. She nodded like she'd been waiting decades for someone else to read it. And in that moment, everything clicked. Lila was loud, but I was a leader. I'd always been one. That night, I wrote a letter of my own. Not to post, not to publish. Just for me. You don't owe anyone your silence. You're allowed to take up space. And forgiveness, that's yours to give or not. But don't carry what's not yours anymore. I folded it, tucked it into a book I kept by my nightstand, and slept harder than I had in years. Then the message came. From Lila. The subject line was one word. Talk. I didn't answer right away. It sat in my inbox for 3 days. Jake nudged me. You gonna respond? I don't know, I said. What if it's fake? What if it's just another performance? Then you'll know, he said. But either way, you'll have said your piece. He was right. We met at a neutral spot, quiet cafe downtown. She showed up 10 minutes late, sunglasses on, no apology. Classic. But this time I was immune. Thanks for coming, she said, awkwardly pulling off her glasses. I nodded. Why now? Lila exhaled. Because I didn't think it would spiral like that. I raised an eyebrow. That's not an apology. She flinched. I guess I deserve that. I didn't say anything. She kept going. I thought if I just made the party happen, it wouldn't matter how. I thought I could smooth it over, rewrite it. But you, she stopped, looked down, you made it impossible to ignore. I waited. She looked up. And I'm sorry, I really am. For taking your credit, for lying, for making you feel disposable. I studied her. Not because I didn't believe her, but because I needed to believe myself. And what I believed was this. I didn't need her apology. I had already moved on. But I nodded anyway. Thank you for saying that, I said. She exhaled. So, are we okay? I took a long sip of my tea before answering. No. Her face fell. But we're not enemies either, I said. I wish you well. I just don't want you in my inner circle anymore. And for the first time ever, Lila didn't argue. She just nodded. And left. That was the last time I saw her. Not in a bitter way. Just final. The way certain chapters close. Not with drama, but with a period. Fast forward 6 months. Nana and Pop sent out a Christmas card, one of those full-page newsletters with family updates. Except this year, it included something different. A special thank you section. To our granddaughter Tessa, thank you for building a memory we'll treasure forever. Love isn't loud, it's loyal. They signed it in Nana's handwriting and Pop's shaky script. I cried when I read it, not because I needed credit, but because I finally felt seen. This story didn't end with revenge. It ended with truth, with reclaiming my voice, with learning that forgiveness isn't about erasing the past, it's about refusing to carry it anymore. I didn't get my money back, but I got something better. Self-respect, peace, a future built on boundaries and trust. And if you've ever been the quiet one in your family, the helper, the fixer, the one they only notice when things fall apart, let this be your sign. You don't have to stay in the background. You're allowed to step forward, to speak, to matter, and to walk away from the table even if you built it.